The sun was high in the sky as the Thompson family approached the towering glass facade of the Dinosaur Museum, a place their son Jake had begged them to visit for weeks. It was an impressive structure, designed to mimic the look of a massive prehistoric creature, its jaws agape in a silent roar. As they stepped through the entrance, the cool air washed over them, a stark contrast to the summer heat outside. Inside, the museum buzzed with excitement. Children darted around, their faces painted with wonder as they marveled at the towering skeletons and massive replicas of dinosaurs that loomed over them. Family, comprised of Father Mark, Mother Sarah, and their 10-year-old son Jake, quickly navigated through the throngs of visitors, stopping occasionally to take pictures next to life-sized T-Rex models and woolly mammoths. After a couple of hours, they stumbled upon a sign that read "Secret Exhibit Enter at Your Own Risk." Curiosity piqued. They exchanged glances. Mark shrugged and Sarah smiled, urging Jake to lead the way. As they stepped through a narrow archway draped with thick velvet curtains, the atmosphere shifted instantly. The soft murmurs of the main exhibit faded into a thick silence, and a low, ominous hum filled the air. The room beyond was dimly lit, with flickering lights that cast eerie shadows on the walls. The air felt electric, almost alive. They stood in awe before the exhibit's lifelike replicas of dinosaurs, each one more impressive than the last. A colossal triceratops with intricately detailed skin, a velociraptor with piercing, painted eyes, and even a towering brachiosaurus that seemed to stretch endlessly toward the ceiling. It was breathtaking, but there was something unsettling about the stillness of the room. Jake, wide-eyed and bouncing with excitement, moved closer to the triceratops, reaching out to touch its textured surface. "Look at this, Mom. It feels real," he exclaimed, his voice echoing softly in the quiet chamber. As his fingers brushed against the replica, a chill ran down Sarah's spine, but she dismissed it, chalking it up to the eeriness of the exhibit. "Let's take some pictures," Mark suggested, snapping a few shots of Jake next to the triceratops. Just as he pressed the shutter, something flickered in the corner of his eye. He turned, startled to see the eyes of the velociraptor shift ever so slightly, its gaze following Jake as he moved. "Did you see that?" Mark whispered, his heart racing. Sarah frowned, glancing over at the raptor. "Probably just an optical illusion." "The lighting is weird in here," she replied, trying to dismiss the strange sensation creeping into her mind. But as they continued to explore the room, they noticed more unsettling movements. The eyes of the brachiosaurus seemed to narrow, tracking their every move, and the massive T-Rex appeared to shift its weight as if preparing to pounce. "Okay, this is getting a bit creepy," Sarah said, her voice tinged with anxiety. "Come on, it's just a museum," Jake insisted, clearly unafraid, and he stepped closer to a towering Spinosaurus. The moment he did, the entire room seemed to shudder. The ground vibrated beneath their feet, and the lights flickered violently. The dinosaurs, once immobile, began to tremble, and the air filled with a deep, resonant growl that seemed to echo from the very walls. Panic surged through Sarah as she grabbed Jake's arm. "We need to go, now," she urged, pulling him back toward the exit. Mark hesitated, captivated by the spectacle unfolding before them, but he felt the palpable tension in the air. Suddenly, with a deafening roar, the T-Rex lunged forward, its massive head snapping inches from Mark's face. He stumbled back, fear coursing through him as the realization hit these weren't mere models. They were alive, awakened from some ancient slumber, and they were hungry. "Run!" Mark shouted, grabbing Sarah and Jake as they bolted for the exit. The dinosaurs roared and thrashed, their lifelike movements sending shivers down their spines. The room was chaos, shadows dancing wildly as the lights flickered on and off. They could hear the ground shaking, the unmistakable sound of massive feet pounding against the floor as the creatures stirred to life. Jake was crying now, fear taking over his adventurous spirit. "Mom, Dad, what's happening?" he yelled, his voice filled with terror. "They're not just exhibits, Jake. They're real," Mark shouted back, pushing through the curtains that separated them from the main museum. But the exit seemed miles away as the sounds of destruction followed them, echoing in the cavernous space. The sounds of crashing, roaring, and the terrible creaking of metal filled the air, drowning out their cries. Just as they reached the entrance to the main hall, the doors slammed shut in front of them, trapping them inside the nightmare. Sarah pulled at the handles, but they wouldn't budge. Panic rose within her as she glanced back to see the massive shadow of the Spinosaurus looming closer, its jaws opening wide as if to swallow them whole. "Over here!" Mark shouted, spotting a side door labeled staff only. He yanked it open, and they scrambled through just as the Spinosaurus let out a bone-chilling roar. The room beyond was dark and cluttered, filled with old displays and dusty artifacts. They huddled together, listening to the sounds of destruction outside. "What do we do now?" Jake whimpered, tears streaming down his cheeks. Mark looked around frantically. "We need to find a way out of here. If those things are alive, they won't stop until they find us." As they crept through the dimly lit room, they heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps drawing nearer. Sarah's heart raced as she spotted a large window at the far end, just above their reach. "There," she pointed. "If we can get to that window, we might escape." Mark nodded, lifting Jake onto his shoulders. "You can do it, buddy. Just climb up and pull us through." Jake's small hands grasped the ledge as he pulled himself up, struggling to get a grip. Just then, a low growl reverberated through the room, freezing them in place. The Spinosaurus was in the hallway, its massive head searching for them. "Jake, hurry," Sarah urged, her voice a mixture of fear and determination. With a final push, Jake scrambled over the edge of the window, that tumbling onto the ledge outside. "I made it," he shouted, his voice full of triumph. "Now help us," Mark shouted, but before he could lift Sarah, the door behind them burst open. The Spinosaurus lumbered in, its enormous jaws snapping inches from Mark's face. "Mom, Dad!" Jake screamed, reaching down desperately. Mark could feel the hot breath of the creature on his neck, the rancid smell overwhelming him. With a final push, he lifted Sarah toward Jake. "Grab her!" he yelled as he ducked beneath the snapping jaws of the Spinosaurus. With one last effort, Sarah's hand clasped Jake's, and he pulled her through the window just as the dinosaur lunged for them. Mark dove forward, rolling through the opening as the creature's jaws closed behind him. They landed on the grass outside, breathless and trembling. They scrambled to their feet, watching as the Spinosaurus, frustrated, thrashed against the window. The museum was alive with chaos, and the once quiet exhibit had turned into a horrifying display of primal terror. "Let's get as far away from here as possible," Mark urged, leading his family away from the nightmare they had narrowly escaped. They ran, their hearts pounding, the roars of the awakened dinosaurs echoing in their minds. As they reached the safety of their car, Jake turned back to look at the museum, the dark silhouette of the dinosaurs silhouetted against the setting sun. "Are they really alive?" he asked, wide-eyed. Mark exchanged a glance with Sarah, knowing they would never return to the museum. "Some things are better left in the past, son," he replied, as they drove away, the sounds of roars and destruction fading into the distance, leaving them with the haunting memories of their encounter with the awakened beasts.